Would like to lead off today's video by saying a big thank you to everyone who joined us over at the Florida Maki Alpha site the past 7 days. On the 30th of November, I uploaded a video here to the main site that was in unlisted status, meaning no one could see it, and was in the process of editing it, and it was so problematic for YouTube that before I could even make it public within a matter of minutes, they deleted the content and they issued my channel a strike, meaning, of course, no live streams and no new uploads for the past 7 days. Now, there has been content I have released here at the main channel this past week, but it had already been previously uploaded to the server, and it largely had to do with Surfside. It was different content that was many, many months old, but I was forced to release it to maintain channel numbers so that they didn't crater my view rates. So that explains why you saw all of the old content. But in today's video, we are going to talk about the things that happened this last week very briefly, and then get into the main topic of what I really wanted to talk about: more evidence that there was an ancient civilization in Antarctica. Now, real quick, for those of you who are unaware, there is a Florida Maki backup site. It's called the Alpha site. This is a reference, of course, to Stargate. And you can come here and you can find very unique content. There is music here. There is footage from the live cam that I have at a feeding station out in the woods. There, over the past week, has been some different topics that we've covered. A lot of different things. There's a SpaceX launch. It's critical that we have backup communications. That if YouTube just gets his nose bent out of joint for whatever reason, that we can still be able to be in contact. So if you don't get any notifications from the Florida Maki for more than a couple of days, this might be the place to go, and I will, of course, give you a link. Now, one of the biggest topics over the last week has been the governor's announcement some days ago that he was going to stand back up the Florida State Guard. This is basically the Florida militia. This is something that I had alleged was in the works many, many months ago, and people thought I was crazy. I even used the Florida State Guard logo. Now, of course, the liberal mainstream media has lost its mind, and they've tried to make some crazy allegation of this being some type of offensive paramilitary force, which is, of course, literally the exact opposite of what the Florida State Guard logo says. It literally says, "Let us alone." 100% of the missions of the Florida State Guard would occur within the borders of Florida. That's the point. But it does raise the question. Some have asked, is Florida trying to become its own breakaway republic? That was all over the liberal media all week, and this is what I have alleged is the case. If you look back historically, when things like this have occurred, look at what's happened in Florida, and you will see some very strange parallels. Now, it also reminded me of something that happened in my life a long time ago. I released a song on the main channel called Satin Lies. It was a song I wrote many, many years ago. And I thought it was a pretty good song, and people I had played it for at the time thought it was a pretty good song. So I submitted it to a couple of different publishers in Nashville. And unanimously, it got rejected. Now, you would ask, well, why? What did they say was wrong with the song? You see, none of them even listened to the song. None of them even bothered. They saw the title. And the title is Satin Lies. Satin, the fabric, S-A-T-I-N, lies. The publishers in Nashville were so ignorant and so dumb that they thought the song was a gospel song that was Satan Lies. That's right. They thought Satan was spelled S-A-T-I-N. This is not a made-up story. This is not the Babylon Bee. This is what happened. I got letters back stating, "Thank you for your submission. However, we are not interested in any gospel or Christian songs at this time." I was confused. The song is not anything to do with gospel or Christianity or anything like it. It's a song about a guy doing the right thing in a bar. Meaning he's married, they've had a fight, he's having a drink, and he gets approached by a young woman, and he has a conversation saying, look, thanks, but I'm just here to drown some sorrows, but I'm going home tonight, is basically the topic of the song. This is why. Some have asked, why don't you do music for a living, Florida Monkey? Why don't you sing and play guitar and all this? This is why. This is what you run into in Nashville. This is the level of intelligence that exists at the highest levels in publishing houses in Nashville. They wouldn't even listen to the song. But as I was going through some old music, I found something that was an absolute gem, and I put it over at the backup channel. It is an old concert from 1998. It's about 40 minutes long. It's Vince Gill, a young Vince Gill, and Sonia Isaacs before she actually became part of the Isaacs Bluegrass Gospel Group. She was at one time a pop country artist trying to make her way in Nashville as well. And you can see her and him in this, and they do a fantastic duet of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. It is a super thing. Would highly encourage folks to go listen to this. If you're a Vince Gill fan, you will absolutely love this. Now, 6 minutes in, main topic. Antarctica. There had to have been some type of an advanced civilization on this planet that we don't know about, because there are things that we have found in other places on the planet that we have no explanation for and would have required an advanced civilization. This is one of those things. Near Greece, some years ago, they recovered this machine that was encrusted in rock that they have dated to the 2nd century BC, 200 years before Christ. Now, many have said, well, they had different types of technology back then. Why couldn't it have just been something local? It's called the Antikythera mechanism. And it is incredibly complex and detailed. They've done scans of this rock, and the biggest gear that has 223 teeth on it is only 5 inches across. Now, in the ancient world, they had the ability to create large things, big things, very well without modern technology, but creating small, intricate, tiny things was virtually impossible because they just didn't have the metallurgy. And a device like this, every spindle, every bearing, every gear would have had to have been perfect, or it would have jammed literally immediately. Anybody who's ever built a watch or any type of small, tiny device with gears knows that if anything is off, even in the tiniest bit, it completely seizes up. Now, there would have been no way they could have created this in Greece in the 2nd century BC. You couldn't have just melted down a sword. You couldn't have just melted down a shield and used that metal. You'd have needed very, very specific kinds of metal that could have been strong enough, yet malleable enough to work at this tiny, tiny level. Some of these gears are so small, so tiny, that you would have probably needed some type of a glass to cut the gears, to cut the teeth in. This is let's see if I can blow up that schematic real quick. Hold on, and we're going to talk about this too. 1 second. Okay, this schematic right here. This is what they're saying they created in the 2nd century BC. It would have been impossible. There is virtually no evidence of anywhere in India. It wasn't a matter of just knowing, the motions of the sun. And that's what this device was designed to do, to track the motions of the sun and the planets and the time of day. It would have been impossible. Making small, tiny things that worked, machines that worked, would have been impossible. Larger machines, maybe. Maybe, because the larger the machine gets, the more play you have. And this is the key, the real key to this. Stopwatches, just basic timepieces, weren't found anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Asia, like this, made of metals with gears, for thousands of years later. Nobody had the technology. Now, some are probably wondering, hey, why did you show those cars? Okay, this is a representation of my dad's first car, 67 Fairlane. This is a representation of my first car. It was a 77 Pontiac station wagon. This is a representation of my current car, the GMC Acadia. Now, what does this show? It shows a progression of technology. They all do the same job. You have a key, you put it in the ignition, you turn on the engine, you put it in gear, press the little pedal, and it goes. Generally speaking, all three of these do the exact same thing. Now, this vehicle is infinitely more complex than this. Does the same job, though. But the person who had the idea for the car, let's go back to Henry Ford, you didn't go from zero to this in one step. Just like this. You didn't go from zero to the Antikythera mechanism in one step. This thing had, let me check this real quick. I forget how many gears this thing had, 50? It was absolutely insanely complex. The gear teeth were in the form of equilateral triangles with an average circular pitch of 1.6 millimeters, an average wheel thickness of 1.4 millimeters, and an average air gap between the gears of 1.2 millimeters. There's no way they created this at that time. Now, even if we look at this and this and this, all of this requires other technologies to create. For example, even if you had the plans and the knowledge and even an entire set of tools, you couldn't go back to 2000 BC and build a car of any kind. Where would you get the steel-belted radials? Where would you get the brake pads? Where would you get the power steering fluid, the brake fluid, the hydraulic fluid, the coolant, the grease? Where would you get the glass? Where would you get the all of the different sources that would have needed to be used. It points to an ancient civilization at one time that had supply chains, that had the ability to work with metals at a very small level, at a very tiny level, and there would have been precursor devices that we don't have evidence of because they're likely lost under the ice down there on a continent larger than all of Europe that they've just not been able to uncover because they haven't explored it for obvious reasons. This device, this Antikythera device, was clearly not created in Asia. It wasn't created in the Mediterranean. It wasn't created in India. It wasn't created in Europe. Not in the 2nd century BC. Because think about creating a device like this for 1 second. This complex. More complex than a stopwatch. What about replacement parts? One gear fails, and the entire thing is trash. One spindle breaks, and the entire thing is trash. You're telling me you wouldn't have had a plan You had the ability and the technology and the wherewithal to create something this complicated, but you had no plan for creating a second one or a third one or spare parts or tools for repair. Where's the toolkit? That would be my question, is if this was created in that region at that time, where's the workshop? Where's that created all of these teeny tiny, itty bitty little microscopic gears? Where are the draft plans? Where are the precursor devices? See, this is what people can't answer. And they've already said, science has already admitted, at one time, Antarctica was not frozen. There's no way they created this in Europe in the 2nd century BC. No way anywhere around there. They found it off the coast of Greece, Antikythera Island. It was clearly brought there from somewhere else. And there's one other aspect of this that a lot of people don't think about. If you were in Antarctica, you didn't know that you were on a globe and that you were at the South Pole of the globe. Now, all you flat earthers out there, just bear with me for a minute and let's think about this logically. If you had access to a compass, it would have been useless down here. Why? Well, very simply put, a compass would have shown you two things. It would have pointed one direction toward the sea and one direction toward the South Pole. Because you start at the South Pole, every direction is north. So a compass invented at the South Pole would have not told you east, west, north, south. It would have just said seaward and inland. Those would have been the two directions. There would have been no east and west. So you would have needed to create something far more complicated, far more complex to be able to sail and navigate away from the South Pole. It might have taken you a great deal longer. You see, that's something people don't think about. Because when you have a compass and you're in the middle of the planet, for example, here, let's say Brazil, for example, you would have north, you would have south, and then, of course, the two directions either way. You would have 4 clear directions. But at either one of the poles, if you were unaware of the rest of the planet, like, for example, most of society was, for the vast majority of history, evolving down here, you would have developed different technologies in different ways. And I'm just going to show this because I put this up a long time ago and decided to make it public. It's their explanation of the birth of Antarctica. And I'm sure a lot of you saw this. How they show, this is Gondwana, Pangea, whatever, the huge supercontinent. And they show it 180, 200 million years ago. And they show it breaking up into South America, Africa, India. And of course, this part here in the center is Antarctica and Australia. And they show it breaking up. And then literally the moment Australia leaves Antarctica, Antarctica starts to freeze. But none of these other places do. It just stays right here, and it just immediately freezes over and becomes this frozen wasteland while every place else stays nice and warm. It's just bizarre, the things that they will create to push their illogical theories of the history of our planet. So I just wanted to show this and cover this. It just defies logic. to my mind, that anyone would think this would occur this way, and in the time frame that it did. There was a civilization here. Whether it looked like this or not, it's hard to say. But one thing is for sure. Something is being missed in this whole discussion of space aliens and are we alone in the universe. We have a huge chunk of our planet that we haven't even discovered yet. Imagine if you were living in a house and it had 3 floors to it, and half of the 3rd floor you had never even gone into, and you were downstairs sleeping one night and you heard all sorts of noises you couldn't explain, and you walked outside and you walked around the house and you couldn't figure it out, but you were sure that those noises, those strange occurrences, were coming from somewhere outside the house, when literally half of the 3rd floor you had never even gone into. That's the equivalent of saying there's no life in Antarctica. Literally 1/6 of the house. You had never set foot in. You had no idea what was there. That's what they're trying to make us believe. That the things we see in our skies, these strange craft, they all clearly must be coming from some other planet somewhere. When the 5th largest continent on the planet and the vast majority of our oceans are entirely unexplored. And I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. Once again, thank you for all the compliments on the music. I appreciate it. This is a long time ago, and I don't have any intention of picking it back up again in any real way because, of course, Nashville is what it is. And I'm sure that doesn't surprise a lot of you. But also the Florida Maquis Alpha site, if you could join us there. A lot of cool stuff. And, of course, it's great to have always a backup. So we will leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.